This episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by Albi. Albi is the all-in-one operating system designed specifically for restoration businesses like yours. It's the CRM that has everyone talking. With Albi, you'll have everything you need in one streamlined platform. From CRM to data analytics and automation, Albi provides tailored solutions that cater to your unique needs. So say goodbye to the hassle of managing multiple apps and hello to the convenience of having all your essential functions all in a single, user-friendly platform. Check out albiware.com to book your demo today. Hey there, restorers. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today, I'm excited to be joined by somebody who's recently ruffled some feathers on the CNR website. Not really, but I have to say that to start because hopefully that draws some people in to listen. I am joined by Nate Cisney. He's a partner with Restoration Made Simple Consulting, or RMS, that you might be more familiar with RMS if you've heard that acronym. So today we're going to be talking about all the things, mostly technology, but also Nate has been in the industry for a while, and he has some things that he's learned that he wished he had learned sooner, and he just has a lot of wisdom to share overall. So we are going to be talking about all things restoration and just having a good chat. So Nate, thank you very much for being here. I'm going to toss it over to you and have you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background in the industry.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me on. And yes, I know we've been talking about this for quite some time, so I'm excited to, be with the famous Michelle Blevins. So, my name is Nate Cisney. Our company is Restoration Made Simple. We are a consulting firm. We really focus on what I call startup to medium-sized companies. We do have a few that are larger, but primarily that's our space. I have been in the industry for longer than I'd like to admit, so I think I'm going on 17 or 18 years now. I was a partner in another large, we were a multi-million-dollar company, so we were big and we did lots and lots of jobs. So I'm super familiar with the TPA space, the technology space, rebuild, mitigation, all that stuff that comes with a full-service restoration company. Reason for going into the consulting side, we were part of other coaching/consulting groups, and they were all fantastic. What I learned from there is invaluable. But what I have realized is with the huge influx of new restoration companies coming into the industry, I just see so much need for help for these smaller to medium-sized guys. A lot of them just have very strong opinions that sometimes are leading down a path that does not allow for growth. And so me and my two partners, that's what we focus on. We want to make a difference. We want to make sure the new guys coming in hopefully are playing by the rules. Hopefully they keep an open mindset to everything. And hopefully we can make them successful and become good partners with everybody else in the industry. So that's what we're hoping to achieve. So
what do you see as some of the biggest hurdles for restorers who are new? Like to get from we're the new guys trying to figure this out, or guys or girls trying to figure this out to, okay, we're in this and we're making money and we figured it out. Like what are the hurdles that people have to get past to get to the part of understanding and being profitable in restoration?
I think that's a great question. Typically, I'd say there's 3 or 4 key things. The biggest thing I see for a brand new startup, for somebody that's coming into the industry, is that they go and buy the equipment. They hear that the barriers to entry are low. They go, hey, you can make lots of money. It's easy. 50,000, 100,000, you can be up and running. And so they go and do all that stuff. And then they come to us because their phone isn't ringing. So a lot of people get in, they think it's easy, but they have no plan as to where jobs are going to come from. Mm-hmm. Half of them have been taught that TPAs are of the devil, so they won't touch those. Half of them have been told insurance agents are not great people. And I'm like, guys, you're pretty much eliminating every revenue source if you start cutting this out. So for us, we try to tell all of our clients to keep an open mind to everything. There's nothing that is a home run. There's nothing that's horrible. It's a matter of, I think, looking at the big picture for all of them. So I think number one, these guys don't know how to get the phone to ring, and they don't know how to do the sales and marketing to get it. And they don't realize how long it takes to ramp that up. Like they're thinking 2 weeks of marketing and their phone should be ringing. And I'm like, guys, it's 3 to 6 months to build a relationship with somebody. That's just the way it is.
Yep.
So that's one big thing. The other one is just lack of training, right? They don't understand how much technology is in this industry. And so a brand new guy comes in, when you're telling them about all the different technologies and the different CRMs, and we'll get further into this, Michelle, but they could be spending another 500 to $1,000 a month with the
Yep.
technologies that everybody is suggesting. And as a brand new startup, another 500 to $1,000, they're just going, man, I'm strapped for cash. So
Hmm.
I'd say that's a big wake up call to a lot of them. And then just training. A lot of these guys have no industry training. They go and get their WRT, and they think if they've got that, they're golden, and that they're going to be able to do everything.
Okay.
And they do that 3 day class, and then they haven't gotten a job for over a month, so they've forgotten everything from the class that they learned, and they get on the job, and literally they're calling me, Nate, how do I place a fan? How do I do the DHU? How do I get the
No.
readings? How do I do the scope sheets? Right? I mean, so those are some of the biggest things that we run into. There's a lot of other stuff as well, but I'd say those are probably top three that we hear pretty frequently. So.
Okay, so I want to talk about the sales piece a little bit more before we go into technology because people are always asking and love reading articles in CNR about the sales process and how to actually get clients and stuff like that now. Like, you mentioned agents, and some people say don't market to agents anymore. That's not going to get you leads. Other people disagree. And then, like, don't bring the donuts anymore. The world has changed, right? The world of sales and marketing is different now than it used to be. So, what tips or advice do you give your clients who are new to sales and marketing in the industry and trying to get their foot in the door?
I think that's a really good question. And I have heard those same things that you've brought up. And some will call it old school, some won't. But at the end of the day, I don't know that any of those are bad things. They're just
Hmm.
all things that are a part of the piece of the puzzle, right? And so
Yeah.
I do have many clients who are like, visiting an agent door to door and dropping off goodies is not a good idea. I can tell you hundreds of clients that still go and visit and drop off goodies, and the agents love them and they use them regularly, right?
Yep.
So it's nothing new, it's nothing innovative, it's definitely old school, but it still works for a whole bunch of people, and it doesn't work for some of the others, right? And so I think it's still a combination of everything, but I will say that it is a relationship business. No matter what anybody wants to say, whatever it takes for you to get a relationship is what you have to do. So if that's going out to lunch, if that's dropping off donuts, if that's taking them to a baseball game, whatever that is, you have to be that person because they are making it based upon the relationship and based upon trust. Now,
Hmm.
if we look at the internet, there's no relationship with the internet, right? We know it's a matter of you pay to play, and if you want to pay, you hope that your phone rings. But it's a pretty risky business. You're kind of, at the slot machines, hoping and praying that your phone's going to ring, and then you have to hope that it's a qualified lead. And then you
Hmm.
got to hope that you're a good enough salesperson that you can sell the job when you're talking to a homeowner. Because the second they say no, there goes $500 to $800 for your paid lead, and you're going, oh crap, I just dropped $800 for a 2 minute phone call. So I tell everybody, go, yeah, the internet's good, but the donuts might be better for you based upon your personality style, right? So once again, it's just looking at the big picture and not closing the door on any one specific thing. So.
I think there are some things about sales and marketing from the past that are, like a little nostalgic, and maybe people miss that. Like, the world technology has made things less personal, right? So having somebody come into your office and visit you and maybe remember, like, oh, I'm bringing donuts, but I know Cheryl really likes glazed donuts. So being sure to be like, hey, I brought you a specific glazed donut. Cheryl, nice to see you. I hope your kids are good or whatever, right? That kind of stuff makes a difference. It's relationships, like you said. So I,
Well, and to that, just to add on, and I know we'll get to the next point, but we had a sales workshop about 5 months ago, and I invited one of the largest, most successful State Farm agents in Utah to come. I invited an adjuster to come who'd been in the industry for 18 years. I invited a very large property manager who was super successful, and I invited a plumber. So I had a panel of all four of these people and all my salespeople that flew in. And I said, all right, you guys get to ask whatever questions you want, and these people will not hold back. They're going to tell you what they like to see from disaster companies, what they don't like to see. The
oh,
number one thing, without me prompting any one of them, independently, all four of them says, if you're going to come visit me, food is a really big thing that lightens the mood and gets the office excited. And I thought that seemed really tacky because our property manager, he was a very large established property manager. And he says, you guys would be surprised when you bring food in how many of my staff are so excited when that food comes in, and it opens up doors that people are at least willing to talk to you. It
Yep.
doesn't mean you're going to get our business right away, but he says it does open the door for conversation. The agent, insurance agent, he said all my CSRs, they love it when the crumble cookies come in. So he says if you want to start a conversation, food is what drives it. So I know it sounds really bad, and I'm sitting there kind of laughing, going, I can't believe food dictates that much. But every single one of them said, bring something in if you're going to come visit us. So, there you go from 4 different industries.
I like it. That's a smart panel. I like the idea of that. I made myself a note. I like doing panels, as you know, so I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into technology, and let's start, I guess, from the point of a lot of contractors that listen to my podcast are newer and trying to get into the industry. And then of course there's people that are more established. But technology is such a tough piece, right? And it has been since I joined the industry. I mean, I remember in 2015 when I joined, that was in the like getting rid of paper era, and one of the big problem points was how do you get your team to adopt technology once you're getting on Dash or whatever it may be? How are you actually getting the buy-in? And now today it's more, oh my gosh, there's so many choices, and they also don't always play well together. And there's like, okay, we have an open API, but we don't really truly have true integrations. Like there's so many different,
Yes.
you get what I'm saying. There's a lot
Yeah.
of different options out there. And so what is like, let's just start from the ground of what is the first thing you tell new restorers when they're trying to figure out what software piece is the best for them as they're getting started?
Um, Boy, that's a really good question, and you'll laugh a little bit when I say this. So we always recommend them, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say company names, so I won't say specific names, but we strongly urge them to use certain pieces of software for sure. And we tell them there's a few specific platforms that are very important. But going back to that, and this will just sound very, very weird, we still tell them to use scope sheets starting out to understand the habit and the reasoning behind why this is important. So just recently, I emailed all my scope sheets over to one of our newer companies saying, start out with this. You can understand, you can get the flow, because when you start with software right off on day one, it's not that intuitive that just a brand new guy is going to know how to do all of it. They really don't, right? Even if the software is amazing, it still takes a lot of time. And so I'm like, guys, go do the scope sheet. And then if you want to go home and do it and upload it into the software, great. But get a little bit familiar with those scope sheets and what it is that the insurance is asking for and why they're doing it. So sometimes they're doubling up, which I know sounds very counterproductive. It's not for the long term. Obviously, that's not where we want them to go. But I have found that many of my technicians actually fill out the scope sheet, a physical paper, better than they do the technology, because the owner will call me up. He's like, my guys haven't filled anything out on this particular software.
Yep.
And I'm like, get them the sheet, because half the time the techs don't know how to use the software. And that's a real problem on the owner side of things, is that they did not force them to learn it, or they didn't force them to implement it, right? And so those would be the things. But I would say anything that is a moisture mapping software, whether it's Encircle, whether it's Mika, whether it's Clean Claims, whatever it is,
Yep.
I would say that's probably one of the most comprehensive things they have to get no matter what, simply because it will make their life easier. And the job documentation is what proves whether you're going to get paid on a job or not get paid. Now, if they don't have the money to start with a CRM right at the beginning, maybe they do keep it in Excel, right? And they track their jobs that way, that type of thing. Some of the CRMs are pretty complicated, but if a company only does 5 to 10 jobs a month, maybe you don't start that big. But I would say any job documentation software would be very, very important for anybody that's new getting into the space. So.
Okay. So for companies more established in the space and maybe thinking about making a software change, or maybe they have recently made one or they made one a year ago and it's still not going well, how do you help coach your clients through the onboarding to make sure it's truly adopted in a team and the software is really being used for what it should be used for? Because it is a big investment. And if you can't get buy-in, then it's fruitless, right?
Yes. So from my past company, and like I say, we were doing over a couple thousand jobs a year, so we were doing a lot of jobs. we went through 3 different CRMs, and it was brutal every time we started. In this case, I will mention company names. So we had Client Runner, they got bought out by Dash. So then we went to Dash, and then we also used PSA. So I've used two of the big boys out there,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if it's PSA, if it's Dash, if it's Accelerate, if it's Albi. The biggest thing is still taking the time. And as owners, for me and my partner, with our last one that we went to, we said that we were going to go 100% in no matter what. In the past with our other CRMs, it was kind of onesie twosies. We had some of our estimators that would use it. We had some that didn't. We would let text do this. We wouldn't let them do that, right? Like, it was being utilized, but it definitely was not being utilized the way that it should be. And so on our last one, when we did our final integration, we said everybody is all hands in, no ifs, ands, or buts, and we dropped all of their software. So we were forced 100% that we had to use this exclusively. And it was 3 to 6 months of pain. Like, it hurt really bad, but I have to give my partner credit for this. The result was much, much better. The system was much cleaner. Our contacts, our relationships, all of our stuff was so much better. So I think if I'm telling somebody, because every client that I talk to, I don't want to say every, they all hate their CRM or they all complain about it in one form or another, right? There's nothing that's perfect. There's no catch-all. But at the end of the day, when they tell me they want to change, I'm like, guys, you realize when you change how painful it's going to be. Are you really just using the software that you have now for what it can do? And most of the time, the answer is no. So if you're asking my advice, would I change? Normally, I would not recommend changing unless the stuff that you need is so critical that your company can't run without it. Then I'd say stick with who you are and just learn the system, right? Dash, PSA, they're all pretty good systems, and they all do about 90 to 95% of what we need. They're missing some of the other stuff, but it still comes down to you just making it work, in my opinion. So it's all in. If you're going to do it, be all in.
Okay. So let's talk about being all inclusive. Let's talk about your article that you wrote. So Nate
The
wrote an
article that people thought was offensive, but don't ask me how.
you know, that's the thing which I tried to explain. So that, for a little background for people who are listening or watching, Nate wrote this article on all-inclusive technology earlier this year, and it got mixed. Like, some people were in full support. I know, really liked it, totally agreed, and then there was the complete polar opposite side of like, I don't like that at all. And I'm used to getting that kind of feedback, kind of on, like water related articles, or more like way to dry a structure type articles, but not so much on a more subjective opinion based technology article. So it was fun to see how it all play out. So Nate, talk a little bit about
And
the
I
article.
love that article. I really enjoyed writing. I'm glad you let me because I thought it was a really good talking point. So.
And I really, to a certain degree, was surprised that there was even a little pushback on it, because I think that there's like just the title, all inclusive technology. I mean, there are a lot of companies that are trying to push for that and push for more, even like integrations, true integrations versus open APIs, and trying to streamline things for restorers. So anyway, so I'm going to let you give kind of a summary of the article, and then we can kind of dive in on what you meant and what you didn't mean.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, for those that I offended, I'm sorry, because actually it was a very non-offensive article. And I didn't read any of the negative comments because I told Michelle I don't read the negativity, but I did get to hear all the positive ones, which was great. So that definitely built my ego up. But yeah, the article, the whole purpose was, and you have to understand my background, right? I was a partner in another company. And so my frustration, as I mentioned, we were running more than a couple thousand jobs a year, which is a very, very high volume of jobs. And I knew the mitigation side, I knew the repair side, and I saw the disconnects that were existing out there. And what I saw more than anything was just the technology. So the technology, let me make this clear for those who are listening, the technology is fantastic, and I think it's great with what we have. The part that where we struggle, and I think anybody who's a business owner, so for those who didn't like my article, I'd be curious if they're actually owners of restoration companies or if they were owners of software companies. But I have not talked to an owner of a restoration company yet, and I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands. who would not like a more simplified, streamlined process when it comes to technology. I've never talked to one who says, "Oh yeah, it's streamlined, it's good." Now let me clarify what I mean by that. For us as owners, when we have to send a technician out and they have to use 3 or 4 different apps on a job to collect data, that's not streamlining. What it is it's causing actually headache, chaos, and a lot of wasted time on jobs. I was talking to my old business partner just last week, actually, just asking him how things are going. And we started talking about technology. And he's like, it's just crazy how many different platforms we have to use on a job in order to gather data. So whether that be Matterport, DocuSketch, and Circle, Clean Claims, whatever it is, when we know that our guys are using 3 or 4 different apps on a job to be able to get what they need, that's taking too long, right? And so my reference to using pen and paper being faster, it really was faster because we would just write down the readings, we'd write down the sketch, and we would be done with it. Now the guy's got to close out one thing, open another app, then they've got to take the photos, then they've got to do this, right? And then if you have TPA requirements on top of that, then you've got a whole new set of other issues that you're having to do.
Yep.
And so what the article, the intent was, is instead of everybody trying to create a new software that already exists, and we'll take, for example, sketching software, Matterport and Circle, DocuSketch, they're all fantastic programs. I don't know that I need another sketching software because out of those guys, they're all fantastic and I could probably get what I need, right? But what I really would like is, can we make it so that it's so seamless? And they're working on these integrations, so I give all of them credit, so please don't misunderstand me, is can we make it so that that app is built into PSA or Dash or Accelerate or LB so that it's seamless, that we don't think we have to go into 3 different apps. When we talk about moisture mapping capabilities, right? A lot of your CRMs are trying to build their own moisture mapper in their system. But I'm like, well, we already got Mika, we already got Encircle, we already got this. Like, why are we building another moisture mapping platform when we already have stuff out there that meets the insurance requirements? And for me, as long as it meets the requirements of the insurance, that's half the battle, right? Because a lot of this we're just doing to satisfy them ultimately, which sounds really bad, but it is to satisfy them so we can get paid on our jobs. So I don't know, Michelle, if you want me to elaborate a little bit more. So yeah, this was definitely not a knock on technology. It wasn't a knock on the software. If anything, it was how do we, as an industry that I think is very discombobulated, there's a lot of separation out there, and I think anybody that's in it knows that. How do we become more cohesive in the things that we're trying to accomplish? And how do we make it more streamlined for our companies so that we can make more money and not spend an hour on a job documenting when a homeowner is standing there going, when are you going to start sucking water? Because you've been standing in my house for an hour and you still haven't started any work yet, right? I mean, that's what it feels like. So.
Do you think that this is something that's possible? Do you think that the industry could get to the point where things are more streamlined? Do you know of other industries that are more streamlined? I don't. I know very little about technology in other industries, but I know people compare us to auto, and we're behind compared to auto. Auto's far ahead. Healthcare, whatever, So, are there other industries that have done a better job of kind of streamlining and making things less crazy?
I think there is definitely some true complexities out there. Obviously, when you have different insurance carriers who require different
Mm-hmm.
things, it's going to make it difficult, right? And
Yep.
so I think that's a component that is making it hard on this industry. And I also think what's making it hard on the industry is the software providers are not maybe as open-minded to saying let's come together, right?
Yep.
Because they like their software and it's like, hey, this is great, I'm going to go sell it. But the idea of teaming up, maybe it waters down what they think they can get out of it. I think just the opposite. I think it actually opens them up to a bigger market with bigger clientele. But I can tell you there's been 2 or 3 big players that I have introduced.
Mm-hmm.
They both have amazing technology. They both would like the other person's client base. And so I've brought 2, head CEO, senior level people with different companies together to see if they can combine some of that stuff that's out there. So I think it can get better. It's not going to be perfect. We know that, right? I guess we take the example of Amazon. If Amazon can truly bring all your shippers, all your delivers, all your warehouses, all these different industries together and still make it work and have something the next day, Trust me, it's not just Amazon. They're buying other companies or they're integrating other people's technologies and they're making it work, right? And that's
Mhm.
a very complicated process. So I think we've got a long ways to go, which is good because that means the improvement, I think, can keep getting better. But it will require people, and maybe this in my article, maybe this offended them. If people will let their egos down a little bit and realize that there is strength in numbers of
Uh-huh.
coming together, that would be
Yep.
that's all I'm trying to get is, hey guys, how do we bring some of this together and not keep it so proprietary? So
Yep. Okay, anything else you want to add on there? I'm going to move on to one more topic before we wrap it up. But anything else you want to
no,
add on the
no,
article?
no, that was great.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So for anybody who's listening, if you have comments or feedback on this, you comment below the podcast, share your thoughts, like get into this conversation because I know that technology is a big conversation in the industry. And any show you go to, any trade show you go to now, there's new people on the show floor, new companies you've never heard of. There's all this new technology all the time, which in some ways is great and really helping the industry. But I also know that it's a pain point for restorers. So if you have any
Yeah.
comments, please share.
I'd
Let's
love the
interact.
feedback too, right? Because we get to talk with lots and lots of companies. I get to work with a lot of different insurance senior level people. I mean, yeah, I would love the feedback too, because if anything, as I mentioned, there's strength in numbers. So let's see what we can do to come together. I think it'd be fantastic. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, before we wrap it up, because people are going to see the article when this podcast comes out, so I don't want to give everything away, but there are a lot of people that listen versus read, whatever that may be. So, you recently wrote an article on what you wish you would have known when you first came into the industry, and you had 5 great points that you put in there. So, what is one thing I think, share something that you, looking back, it's like surprising that you wish that you would have known that. I think that there are some things where it's like, I wish I would have tracked my numbers better, or I wish I would have hired somebody for this position sooner, things like that. But is there anything as you were writing that article that came out where you're like, I wish I would have known that? And I don't think that any owner would even think about that at the beginning, but that really could have helped me change my early trajectory.
I'd say there's two things, and that's an excellent question. Number one, and I see this with all of our clients, it would be actually tracking numbers. Like, I
Mhm.
wish that we would have tracked our numbers way better starting out. We were fortunate enough. The company was owned by my brother and my now partner in the consulting firm, and they asked me to come build the company because my background has been with startup companies. So I came into it and I got lots of contracts and we built really, really, really quick and we grew very fast, thank heavens. But as far as tracking our numbers goes, it was basically what's in the bank account. How much money is in the bank account? And that's how we made decisions. There was no other tracking that happened, which is a dangerous way to run your business.
Mhm.
So for anybody out there, and all my clients know this, track your numbers. And I'm not saying at a high level, but make sure you have a profit and loss. Check it once a month and just see where your money is going and where it's coming from. The second thing that I would say is probably, um, oh, what was I going to say? It was tracking numbers. Oh, and this is not a solicitation. I wish that we did have somebody who had experience in the industry. So
Yeah.
whether it be a coach, whether it be a consultant, whatever it was, it would have allowed for much better organizational skills and much better just a path forward. Even though we were very successful, which I'm grateful for, there was some really hard knocks that we had where there was some big money losses that we had because we just didn't know. And so
Mhm.
I'm not saying to use us, I'm saying in general. And if you're going to use a coach or a consultant, I would strongly, strongly recommend that it has to be somebody in the industry,
Mhm.
not somebody outside of it. Not to say they can't help you, but I would stick to somebody who's been doing this, who has a track record, because if we can help you not make $100,000 mistake or a $200,000 mistake, it's worth its weight in gold for what it will save you. So just don't go down the path that we did. Learn from other people so you don't have to make those mistakes. So,
I totally agree. I think any industry you go in, you should have somebody in your industry that's consulting with you, right, and helping you through it. I didn't get into publishing on my own. I had a great just consult
yep.
like great mentor on this side of things. So yes, find people and get help. I totally agree. Okay, Nate, anything else you want to add before we wrap it up? This has been fun and good conversation.
No, it's great. I love it. No, I think to everybody in the industry, like I said, whether you're a big company, small company, for a lot of my small to medium sized guys, I tell them go be friends with the big guys because the big guys might need your help. They always do. They run
Mhm.
into jobs that are so large that
Yep.
sometimes they do that. And my small guys are like, that seems so counterproductive. Why would I want to poke the bear? And I go, no, I had to sub out jobs all the time to smaller companies, right? And
Yep.
to the big guys, get to know some of those small guys because they're the ones who might be able to save you when you got to pull more guys and more fans. They're willing to work and they're happy for the work. So I think uh, this can be a friendly industry. It's okay to have competition. Just make it good competition, right? Learn to work with people and make sure that they're upholding the values and integrity that we're all hoping for in this industry, just
Yes.
so it runs smoother.
Yes, totally agree. Great advice. Well,
Yeah.
Nate, thank you very much. I really enjoyed our time. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
You're awesome. Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
For more restoration today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.